For anyone listening, we have a few different types of people in our membership community. We have business owners and entrepreneurs, people leaders who are trying to grow and develop their leadership skills, people really just trying to explore and discover their career sweet spot and where their strengths and passions lie, people who are job seeking. But Andrew is probably a mix of a lot of those. I'll let you introduce yourself, but you're in my view, you're kind of a creative business owner, creative entrepreneur. And I also think you're really, you're a very curious, learner-oriented person and a really genuine person. So I'm excited to have you on and chat a bit. But why don't you just give the brief intro of who are you, where you live, what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Andrew, and I live in Columbia, South Carolina. And my wife and I own a wedding film business. And just a little background story thing is I started recording videos of my friends and I doing really crazy stuff, like growing up in high school and all that, like sketch comedy videos, us playing music, like a million different things. And basically decided that I wanted to go to school for that. And so I pursued that, met my wife in college, and we both thought we were going to go into the TV and television world and realized that was not the path for either one of us. And never thought that weddings at all were going to be what we were filming, but really fell in love with it and felt like we could use our filmmaking degrees to kind of tell these really authentic and powerful retellings of people's wedding day. And so it was weddings were never the outlet we thought we were going to be down, but it's been such a fun experience and excited to keep going.
That's cool. Yeah. South Carolina came up last night because, I have a daughter who's 6. It's such a fun age. They say the most random stuff. Like they're kind of informed, but not fully, And all of a sudden she was just like, yeah, so we can go to South Carolina. So it's like in South America. And I was like, oh, well, no. And, so we started kind of making visuals. It's like, it's kind of like Virginia where we are. Uh-huh. Then there's North Carolina and then South Carolina. And then you get down to Florida and then it's, Central America. Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay. So what we can do is get our stuffed animals and some snacks and get in the car. And so we can drive to South Carolina, but we might need a hotel. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay. And then we can drive to France, but we're going to need a hotel for that too. I was like, I think you got some kind of a plan here. It sounds like a good trip.
You're getting there. Honestly, with my geography skills, there's probably some can relate to that statement. Where I know where things are at.
I'm the same way. Do you ever do this? Sometimes I'll just pull out Google Maps and zoom in and out to try to understand where something actually is.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fun actually.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start here. We'll probably hit on a few different things, but I'm just curious. You've been part of the greenhouse community for a little while and, engaged in some different parts of it, but what was the initial thing that brought you to greenhouse? Why were you interested in joining in the first place?
Yeah. So I was in, after college, I basically, like I said, we thought we were going to go into this film television world and just realized that was not for us. And so basically I left college and was super confused about what I wanted to do as far as a career and didn't know how my skills with videography or anything like that, where I could use those. And I knew there was marketing and I knew that there was weddings and I knew that there was a few different outlets, but I just really got into a place of feeling super lost on where to go, what direction I should go in. And, we kind of actually realized in college that we wanted to start a business, but I absolutely had no idea how to do that. And before joining Greenhouse, we were kind of doing that, but it was we just didn't really know how to grow. We didn't know how to just take all those steps. And so, I was at a job in marketing doing videography stuff and just was not feeling it. And, was just feeling very lost and stuck in where I should be going or what I should be doing. And, So actually, I saw some posts online, I think from Joe, about greenhouse, and I'd always been a person who loved like self help and apps and like all those kind of things in order to like grow yourself and try to be a better person. And I tried a lot of those things, but they felt like they just always gave me little helpful tips, but never gave me like the actual answer that I was looking for.
Yes.
And basically, Greenhouse was another one of those attempts. At first, I was like, let's just see how this goes.
What'd you
And
actually think about us? Yeah. You were probably like, well, this is going to be
well,
another failed.
yeah, well, it was. I think there was a difference where it was like before it was always just me like trying to read these books and me trying to like do these apps and stuff like that. And there were a few people in my life that I felt like were giving me some like helpful insight, but they were also just in different stages in their life and stuff like that. And I just didn't feel like I could really connect or relate to them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw Greenhouse, I was like, well, this whole idea of like having a community of people trying to figure this out together, and then also having some coaches, like that felt like something I hadn't tried, yet. And so that's really what intrigued me the most. And then, after joining Greenhouse, it was like, you guys helped me really realize that like a lot of core components about like myself, and I specifically think about it as like I started seeing more patterns like in my life of like things that I really enjoy doing. And um, I'd mentioned this in my message to you before this, but like the what, where, and why exercise that we did, like one of
Yeah.
the first meetings that I was in with you guys, I was like, that like blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, these things that I've been doing like as a kid, like I'm seeing them even now, like in what I enjoy doing as far as work. And
Isn't that funny though? How it's like that's such a simple thing, but we can miss it. I
yes,
mean,
literally, I would even say that about like you guys in general at Greenhouse. It's like these simple things that like are kind of like they feel like they should be common sense.
yeah.
It's
And
like
we like to charge money for you to do those.
yeah, yeah.
It's like,
It's like worth it though, because I mean, it's if you're trying, for me especially, I was trying to do all this stuff by myself, and it was like I just felt there was so much information overload and all these new techniques and all these new ways to do things that it was just like noise at that point. And then like with you guys, it was like jumping into these simple techniques, but doing it with other people, and it was hearing other people and bouncing ideas, and it was like, yeah, I felt that way too, or like I didn't even see that, and it was like that was really helpful to understanding what I was even actually looking for.
huh.
So
Yeah, that's interesting that like seeing themes over and over was a big thing for you.
yeah,
Cause yeah, I'm kind of like you where I tried a lot of that stuff for years and it's like, what's missing or why doesn't this work? And so often it was because it was like too complex or too, it was like too many insights. I don't need 18 personality tests. I actually just need like clarity.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you start to. I mean, I think that it's you start to look at those things and you start to put yourself in a box a little bit, and then you start to realize that like you have y'all talk about this a lot, but you have your own experiences in life, and like while those personality tests and things can be helpful, like they're also living inside of your experiences as well. So um,
I hadn't thought about this before for you, but hearing you talk about it that way, it's fascinating that you went to school for something fairly specific. Like
mhm,
a lot of times we talk to people who feel like they're generalists or they've done lots of different jobs and it's like you don't know where you fit, you don't or your degree was, maybe a liberal arts type of topic that's,
mhm.
not directly correlated to a job or even for myself it was like engineering, but that's so broad.
Mhm.
And you were in something pretty specific and yet still felt like I don't know how this translates or I don't know what exactly to do with it.
Yeah, and I think it was a lot of we went when we went to school. One of the things that drew us towards like filmmaking was the telling of like powerful stories in like a really beautiful way, and it felt like going into the my first job, I didn't realize how inexperienced I was with like videography. Like college did not prepare me in a lot of ways, but jumping into that job, I had a lot of technical things that I needed to learn. And then the second job that I jumped in was a lot of like learning just how to get things done and like how to get them done without worrying about perfection and all that kind of stuff. But we really went to school for storytelling, and it was like that's one of the reasons that like marketing is somewhat storytelling, but it was more of like a fictional storytelling that we were drawn to. But then like getting into weddings, it was like being able to find the deepness and I guess profoundness in each like couple, and like being able to retell that was like something that we were really drawn to. But anyway, yeah, so it was specific, but yet there was like a lot of things to figure out of what direction I wanted to take all those things.
Yeah. Have you always been just really interested and drawn to like storytelling in general?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, I think about this a lot. I had a professor one time, a script writing professor, and he was saying that one of the things that he was always jealous about when it came to like people growing up in like the South, especially like the rural South, it was like people live by stories, and it was like that like, storytelling was like a huge part of my life, and really, I mean, there was just like, you know, it seemed like even growing up, going to high school and stuff like that, like literature was like a huge thing in like our school. So yeah, like stories were always something that really kind of drew me into it. And I also love people. So I can sit here and talk forever with like people and get to know them and their stories. So all of that kind of really lined up, and it was really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, give me a sense of like, what does a day in the life of you look like? what do you do kind of in a day, in a week, in this role?
Yeah. Day in the life. Well, usually every morning I'm like woken up by my husky screaming in my face. And that's like usually the beautiful alarm clock that I have. But other than that, I mean, really throughout the week, we're doing a lot of editing and, trying to work on marketing and the behind the scenes of our business and stuff like that. And then on Saturdays, depending on when we have a wedding, usually it's Saturdays, you will be filming that. And so really it's just, editing and going and filming weddings on the weekend, and then trying to get out of our house in the afternoons after we've been in here all day. But yeah, it's honestly probably very similar to a lot of people right now, like, with COVID going on.
Yeah. Is there, okay, so one of the things that has been cool to see with you is in the greenhouse community, we really have designed it and hope for it to be a place where people don't necessarily just like get that clarity you were talking about or make some kind of transition, but really a place where you can grow. And you were mentioning like alongside, with other people who are doing the same thing. And it actually feels more to me, some of the story about your clarity moments and stuff, I kind of forgot about because it seems like a while back, but you've been focused on growing the business, growing as a leader and business owner yourself. I'm just curious, like, are there certain things recently you've been trying to learn and grow in?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me recently, it has been a lot of like, all right, I've learned a lot about, who I am and what drives me towards work, and what environments that I enjoy working in. And I think that there's been a few just opportunities recently for more work, for more things to do, like when it comes to the videography in my career, which is always a great thing. Like opportunity is always really, really cool. But I feel like I've really gotten the chance to implement what I've learned about just myself and because all these things that, even though they're showing up, they don't always align with like what I actually want to be doing. And I see a lot of creatives get burnt out when they try to just take on way too much work because either they feel like they need to, or, they take on everything that they can potentially get, and they wind up getting burnt out and hating whatever it is they do. And so, Sarah, my wife, and I, like, we have been really trying to be intentional and like slow down and just really say, all right, this is our business. This is the like qualities that we want to pursue when it comes to our work and our lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And we're not going to try to be in a hurry to get all these more things in just because we feel like it. So, yeah, as far as learning recently, I just feel like almost it's definitely have learned a lot about myself and am implementing those things now. So that's been
It,
really cool.
yeah, I'm always, I think you and I may have talked about this before. It's the whole concept of like, what's your purpose? What's your calling? What's your passion? I mean, it's funny because that's what we do, and yet I kind of hate the topic sometimes because it can be so misinterpreted. You know, people take everything in our culture to extremes. So it's like, oh, well, then every moment of my waking life should be like filled with passion and purpose. And it's like, both you and I kind of got clarity on what we want to do, what we feel more like in a deeper sense actually kind of called to or purposeful. And yet, I mean, I'm curious what you'd say. I'd say like 80% of my day is still filled with things that I don't like doing or, you know, and that's part of it. I actually think that is part of doing something meaningful.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. Weren't you and I talking about this recently?
I think so. Yeah. And I think the reminder is just that there's like a big picture and overall thing. Cause there's a lot of things about, especially even owning a business where it's like, I don't want to be doing this, or like, I wish that I could potentially hire somebody to do this, but right now we're not in a position to do that. Like, but it's one of those things where I feel like reminding yourself of the big picture, and like we talk about this too a lot on here is like being a part of like the weekly rhythms and the weekly like sync ups that we do on here. It's like it feels like every single week I'm like reminded of like why I'm doing what I'm doing and like all those like certain things, and it's like that that weekly like sync up is really just this time to get like regrounded in okay, like this is these even all these small things that I don't want to be doing, like I'm going towards something.
Yeah. I remember I created the weekly sync up idea out of that same realization because I was like, everything out there, all the popular content, media, talking heads, it's all the sexy, exciting stuff.
Yeah.
But that doesn't move the needle. Like when you actually get into the daily grind of doing these things, it was the boring stuff, the repeated stuff that made the difference. And I was like, yeah, you need some way to keep remembering the big picture and then keep doing the small stuff over and over.
Yeah.
Because like I don't need more TED Talks every week to make my dream come true or to make a business successful or to be a good leader. It's like you actually need to just keep doing those small things over and over. So what if we had a meetup? What if we like did that together every week and it wasn't sexy or exciting at all? It was just like, no, you got to keep with it every week.
And that was the thing too about like working in old like jobs is realizing that there was like there was just a culture of like always having to do something new or always having to take something on, and like, you know, self-help and like hurry and productivity and efficiency and like all these things were like constantly changing, and there was always these new ideas and all this kind of stuff, and it was like I never felt like anything got accomplished. It was like we were like doing a lot, but it was just like surface level. Like we were just it was always reactive, and it was never like from a sense of like this is who we are and like we're going to move forward in this, and that's what I've enjoyed about like our business. Like owning a business is stressful for sure, and there's a lot of anxieties that come with that, but it's like being able to work from a core of like, even if I have to, you know, one day potentially get a job that I'm not the most excited about for a little bit to come back to something later. It's like, I still know my core and I still know that like I'm making a step towards something in order to like push towards that. So yeah.
That's so cool that I didn't know you had the same experience. So you were in marketing when, like what you're referring to? All right. I was in financial services, but same thing. It was always flavor of the month. We'd move on to the next thing. And of course, the whole system's designed for that. Like the whole thing rewards people for like starting a new thing constantly. But then everyone's main complaint was always like, we didn't finish something or we didn't follow through on that plan. And it drove me nuts. I'm the same story as you. I was like, this is crazy. Why can't we ever complete a thing we started? And then everyone complains. It's like, well, It's because we keep having new flavor every month.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started Greenhouse, that was one of my first like goals was, okay, I can't wait to say this is a thing we're going to do and actually do it till it's done.
Yeah.
This is really satisfying.
Yeah. And you lose so much passion and drive when you just don't see those things happening. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the point? Why am I even here?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that was a question that I asked myself a lot, and that's one of the main things that drew me towards owning my own business. Was like being able to like. It's so funny because it's very countercultural, but just like we wanted to like slow down, like we wanted to like be slower and way more intentional and like purposeful in our business. And there are days that we struggle with that, like everybody else, because we live in the culture that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
But again, coming back weekly and getting like regrounded is something that's like very helpful in that.
Yeah. So you said, yeah, I mean, you said that specifically the what, where, why, but going through some of the process to figure out direction gave you more clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And do you find that still helps? Like you're talking about weekly remembering the big picture. Where is that now? Like, do you still feel clarity, or does it get cloudy again?
Oh yeah, and I think especially I remember there was like when I started Greenhouse, there was like this season where I had stopped for a little bit just because we had a lot of stuff going on. And I remember that like I got so like during that even that small season, I started just feeling very again like very confused in like what I was supposed to be doing and like all that kind of stuff. And even now we've talked about this before, but like there are some times when like imposter syndrome starts to kick in as a business owner when you start to feel like maybe things aren't working out the way that you see them working out, all that kind of stuff, where it's like you start to have those feelings again of like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing this correctly or whatever? And I swear that it never fails that when I start to actually like be intentional with doing whether it's like some of the I know now that it's like when I start to feel those feelings, I should probably go grab like one of the modules or something like that in the greenhouse course and work through like core statements or like, you know, career sweet spot stuff and just like be reminded of like those things that I, you know, have as far as like my core and stuff. So it's like um yeah, definitely still feel like it's work, but there's still clarity there. It's like you have to like when you have those feelings of like cloudiness and confusion, it's like that should be a trigger towards like
Yeah.
I need to go and actually like practice reminding myself of you know what it is that I actually enjoy. And again, I know we've mentioned it multiple times, but that's why it's so helpful to like block off time on my schedule to like attend sync ups and all that kind of stuff in order to get my brain going and all that kind of stuff on business and my
Yeah.
life.
Well, that's also part of why you mentioned community earlier, and I'm finding that I'm valuing that more and more because what you're talking about also leads to like the imposter syndrome, but also the comparison trap.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about this online, especially as an entrepreneur. You see everybody, and all they talk about is the huge successes. Like mostly what you see is people crushing it and you looking at it going like, I'm failing, I'm not as good as them. And that can be so defeating. And you know, that's why I like talking to you and being in community around it. It's like we're real. You were joking about your air fryer earlier on Instagram. But I love your Instagram stories because you do just get on and just talk for real. And it's not like, look at how I 10x'd my business this month, you know? And it's like, no, that's not actually the real story for anybody. The successes come from the struggle too, but like you just kind of talk real. And I don't know, I've been thinking about how do you balance that? You know, how do you balance, especially being online as, you know, being real and also being encouraging and talking about the successes.
Sarah doesn't let me on our milestone code, our actual business page too much just because of my ability to talk about air fryers and stuff. But
She's like, we're trying to create an actual brand. You're just going to bring it down with your authenticity.
Yeah. No, we I mean, even like going to a business standpoint, like we feel that a lot, and it's like it always feels like you have to have some like amazing post that like catches everybody's attention, and like if a post doesn't get as much reaction, then it's like, you've wasted your time, or you've like it's been a failure. And um that's been something that's like that's been a real struggle, trying to find that balance of like, we don't want to completely have our entire business ran by some company like that doesn't really care that much about us. And so it's like we want to post great work and show people what we're capable of, but also at the same time not get too caught up in it. And like we'll post stuff like on our personal page, like we might post a beautiful clip from a wedding, and then like the other day I had to do some work underneath our house, and like I just happened to use our video light to like see some different things, and so Sarah was like handing me the video light under the house, and I was like shining it as I was working. And so there's just like part of it too where like people connect to who you are as a person. And I kind of live by this thing that like, if I'm just being myself and like you don't want to have any part of that, and then you're going to base it off of social media, then like probably don't want to hang out with you anyway, like to be honest. But also at the same time, like, yeah, you do have to be professional in there sometimes, and all that. But we actually, talking about that, like we went through a really hard season of comparison trap, like not long ago at all. It felt like, especially during the beginning of COVID, and we were trying to start our business, because that was all lined up right there. And it was just like getting overwhelming every single day, like clicking onto Instagram and just feeling like there was a new business that was popping up, like a new wedding videography business. There was somebody who was like better than us, or either just as good as us, like coming into the same market, and like everybody's in the same bucket. So you get to see like everybody's work, and like these, brides or grooms who are looking into a wedding videographer, like they're getting to see all of these different people. And it's like, you feel like you have to like, do gymnastics in order to like get somebody's attention. And we went through a really, really hard season of that. And honestly, like, as hard as it is, sometimes I think that like time is just like the only thing that you can like use to get through that. And trying to find healthy practices with social media and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes I think it's just like time and getting used to the competition too.
Yeah, just giving it time. That actually is oddly so encouraging, because I often feel like, oh, so and so or this company, they're so much further ahead. And the reality is, anyone who's been in it long enough will tell you, like, there aren't overnight successes. It's so rare that it happens fast. It happens slow over time. And I mean, I feel like I'm 3 years behind where I thought I would be, and all of that kind of stuff. It's just, but everyone's story is that. And so I guess to me, that's encouraging what you're saying. I hope to anyone listening in that place in entrepreneurship, it's like, you're not behind. You're probably right on par with everybody else.
And I think that like we've learned that, of course, like Instagram and LinkedIn and those platforms, people are sharing the best part of their lives. And that's not always the reality of actually like what's going on. Like we've had plenty of conversations with people that we almost seen as like celebrities in our industry. And they're like, we're literally in the exact same boat as you. Like we feel the exact same things. And we've just been doing this a little bit longer than you have. And like, we've learned different things and you're learning those same things. And like, that was something that was like really encouraging. And I would say too, like if you're feeling like extreme amounts of like imposter syndrome and comparison stuff, like I'm never scared to like reach out to those people who like I think are like really, powerful in whatever platform it is that you're using, and just saying like, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm feeling these ways, and I see that you're like really, doing a great job with social media and stuff like that. Like, can you help me kind of like navigate a little bit of all this? And don't be scared to ask questions, and like, sometimes look like a fool or have your pride like taken down a little bit by doing that. I think that sometimes it's really helpful to do that.
All right, I'm calling it right here. You and I are starting this movement. We're going to do it. Like, I'm picturing commenting on each other's posts with that, it's like, let's start a movement of just encouraging each other in that, because yeah, it's a daily struggle. So I would love for you to tell people listening, if they are about to get married or know someone who is, or need film for any other kind of thing, like what's your Instagram, what's your website, and what kind of projects are you looking to do?
Yeah. So we are at Miles Film Co. on Instagram, MILES Film Co. And
I'm glad you spelled that, because your smooth Southern voice
yeah,
was.
no, I have to do it every single time. And yeah, even like Siri text messages, I cannot do that. Siri.
She's like, can you repeat that more Midwestern, please?
Normal accent. But yeah, we as far as projects and stuff, like we just really want to. We work with a lot of couples who are just really intentional about their wedding days and trying to really recreate those moments, and that looks different for a lot of different people, whether it's a traditional wedding or a elopement or a destination wedding. Like we work with all types of people. Really, it's just people who really want to relive that special day, and they're very in love with their significant other, and want to see that like 50 years from now and be able to relive that. So that's kind of our goal.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I am curious, in terms of business and life, where are you headed next?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's continuing just to grow our brand. Like we're about to work on a lot of content on wedding videography and kind of who we are as a company, but also trying to get in front of some questions about, because honestly, it can be really overwhelming in any with looking for a photographer, a planner, a florist. Like there's so many people out there, it can get really overwhelming. So our goal is to try to like create some content to help out with those feelings of being overwhelmed. And yeah, it's honestly just like growing in, for us moving forward, it's just growing in a more healthy way of viewing work and going about our work and creating better quality work. And so that's from the business side of things. And then personal side of things, we're about to go to the UK this year for the first time, first international trip, and I'm trying to get all that planned out. So we're excited about that.
Awesome. Well, specifically a vlog, right? You're going to be on YouTube?
Yeah, we're getting on YouTube, so follow us there too.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Andrew.
Absolutely.